Welcome to Twice 5 Miles Radio, fertile ground for conversations worth listening to and remembering. I'm your host, James Navé, always airing first on WPVMLP Asheville 103.7 and streaming online, WPVMFM.org, the voice of Asheville heard all over the world, and on other community radio stations like KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio out of Taos, New Mexico. Thank you, Walter Parks, for our theme song. WalterParks.com for more on Walter's music. Thank you, Dauphine Dial, for managing WPPM-FM in Asheville, and Robin Collier for doing the same, KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio in Taos, New Mexico. You can always reach me, Navé, at jamesnavé.com. Navé is spelled N-A-V-E. I'd like to remind you, we're sponsored by the Imaginative Storm Writing Project. If you'd like to improve your writing chops, even join a free workshop that happens every Thursday or Saturday, imaginativestorm.com is a good place to go to find out more information about how you can do just that. So I hope to see you on one of our free workshop calls. Today, I have a good friend, John Biscello. I've known John for a long time. John lives in Taos, New Mexico. He's a photographer. He's a visual artist. He's an actor. He's a poet. He's a conversationalist. He's an all-around creative guy, and I don't know what else John does, but he works with children. I do know that. I'm excited to have John on the show because he's participating in our upcoming June the 6th event at the Taos Community Auditorium, known by the local folks in Taos as the TCA, and it's the Taos Portrait opening for the Taos Portraits 2, a book composed and created by Paul O'Connor and many of his collaborators. And so we're going to have a gala on June the 6th, and John's going to be part of it. He has agreed. We're grateful for that. John, welcome to Twice 5 Miles Radio.
Thank you, Navé. Yeah, it's interesting. We've known each other a long time, and our paths rarely cross these days. So it's funny that we're now crossing over the airwaves again. Conversation for many people.
Indeed we are. And you're in Taos, and I'm sitting on a set of steps in Paris with my good friend John Van Hassel on Rue Dauphine. So we're in different parts of the world, but we're right here, right now. So John, you were telling me just before we started that your theater group, a bunch of young students, getting ready to do a show. So give us a sense of what that's all about, and then I'll lead from there into talking about the other artistic things that go on in Taos, including our gala opening on the 6th of June.
All right. Sounds good, Navé. I'm the director and founder of the Taos Youth Ensemble, and we've been in existence now for over a decade, and it's morphed and evolved where we do 2 summer camps every year. And I instituted, right after COVID, we started taking on full-length productions, where it was a 6-month program, more intensive, a greater commitment. And it evolved into 2 different groups. I have a junior group, which are kids that are around 6 to 10 years old. And then I have my senior group, which are about 11 to 17 years old. And the way it's been working for the last several years is we meet on Saturdays. We have a 6-month program, as I said, and both groups work independently. And then we merge together about halfway through to work on whatever the feature-length production is. And this year we're doing Neverland Noir, which is a play that I wrote. It's a noir remix of Peter Pan with characters cast in different roles and iterations from what you may be used to from the original Peter Pan. And yeah, I have a group this year. It's really grown. I have about 30 kids that are all part of our cast. And yes, we're less than 2 weeks away from our opening. So that will be our both Taos and world debut, first time this play's been performed by these youngsters. I mean, as you know, you've done a lot of performing yourself. You've worked with a lot of people. That bonding experience, especially when it's over a length of time, like 6 months. And some of them are returning after years. So, you know, they started young. They graduate into the next level, the senior group. So I've watched these kids grow, and then many of them have been going on to NMSA, the art school in Santa Fe, for performing arts or dance. And so, yeah, it's just amazing watching them leave, and it's always bittersweet. And last year, tears were shed. And then new people come in, and there's new blood, and the cycle continues, and others move on. And that's the way it's been for the last several years. Last year, we did the Twilight Zone. which, yeah, again, was kind of a modern retake on many of the classic episodes. The theme was to do it in black and white as much as possible on stage. So it's been a blast. I've learned more about myself, what it means to be creative, to teach and collaborate, working with young people than I think from almost anything else.
Tell me what you've learned about yourself.
Patience, definitely. What I've really learned though is flexibility and adaptability the most because you're working with different ages, different personalities, different chemistry between groups. And this is true in theater. And I think it's especially true for me in youth theater, is that things are going to go the way they go, not the way that you script them to go. As that's happening, and as it's happening with younger people who are maybe doing this for the first time or they're young in their process, how we have to navigate together and be flexible and adaptable constantly. You're on your toes. It's not like I lay out a blueprint. This is just the way it goes. But how is it that it's going to organically change throughout the duration? That's probably been some of the biggest lessons.
Where will you be offering this? What theater for people listening in Taos? And those of you listening in Asheville, if you want to drive out to Taos to see John's show, it's only a 2-day drive.
You want to
We're,
fly in from Paris? Come on, do it.
well, tell me when it's going to be.
Wildflower Playhouse. Do you know the Wildflower?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's our newer, still I consider it a newer theater, and it's been this amazing addition to the community to have another option, a smaller theater, and the staff there and what they've created and what's been brought in has been amazing. So yes, the shows will be at Wildflower Playhouse.
And for people that aren't sure where that is, where is it located in Taos?
Oh, I'll have to. It's we're gonna say the south side of town, right by the UPS, but that doesn't give the it's on the Paseo, right by the UPS outside of town, but I don't have the exact address off the top of my head.
Well, we'll leave it at that because folks listening from outside of Taos will appreciate that what you gave me just enough directions to be able to find it. So if you live in Taos, you'll go to where the cows used to live and take a left and you'll see
Yes,
the big
yes.
tree. And from there you can go around the corner and you'll be there. So those were some Taos directions.
Yeah.
Let's look a little bit at this play that you wrote. I know you've written many plays. You're a playwright. I said you've done a lot of
Mhm.
things. What's the storyline? Peter Pan Noir? The
Yes.
midnight? Does this all happen at night? What's Peter Pan up to? Come on, man.
All right. Well, what happened to Peter Pan? It actually, the emphasis in the beginning is on J.M. Hook, who is the great grandson of Captain Hook, and he's a metaphysical private investigator. And Wendy comes to his office, and he's in I'm putting up my quote signs, the real world. Wendy comes to visit him, and she wants to hire him, and it's kind of done the classic style of old Maltese Falcon or those old noir films. But basically, Peter Pan's dreamer, his inner dreamer, has been stolen. And because he can't dream anymore, he's got a bad case of the blues, he's lost. And what's happened is he's fragmented into various Peter Pans that are all running around doing their own thing. And so that's how it launches. And then Hook, who has his own checkered and troubled past with his family history, he has not followed in the footsteps of the rest of the Hooks. And he's become an investigator. He decides to finally go to Neverland, where he never thought he would go, to help find Peter's dreamer. So along the way, he goes through an assortment of characters. He meets the lost ones, and there's a mermaid cabaret, and he cycles through these different scenes and situations, and the story and the narrative builds from there. And of course, not only is there the regular Peter Pan, we have a Peter Pan who's a rapper, a Peter Pan who is now old, has grown old, and is hanging out with birds, feeding the pigeons on a park bench. Peter Pan who's turned into a woman and he's become the mother that he's always wanted. So that's the sort of metaphysical quality to the play. And yeah, that's the general premise.
What are the dates for this, by the way?
Oh, yes, that's pretty important. April 11, 12, and 13. There'll be four shows over a 3-day span.
Oh, shoot. I will be coming back from Paris on the 13th.
You're
That
not meant
night.
to go to Neverland
I'm
this
not
time.
meant to go to Neverland this time. I'm
No.
going to have to wait around for my next Peter Pan to come up and show me what to do. Let's go back for a moment to the students. All of the students engaged with you get a lot out of this. Some of them go on, as you said, to other places to move into the world of the creative world. What about the ones who just dip in, have some experiences, and then go on into their lives that don't include theater afterwards? Do you keep up with those? And how does the experience with you inform their lives outside of the theatrical arena?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have kept up because I also teach independently out of the schools or different schools. And so I've connected with many, many young people. And now some of them will stop me in the streets and they're like grown men and women, and they still call me Mr. John, but they're like way taller than me and driving cars, working the service jobs. One person specifically, I was remembering, she said in college, when she had to present or do an oral presentation, theater had helped her. She didn't go on with theater or performing. And, many don't. This is just they want the experience of like the play, the fun, going into your imagination, and then you do whatever you do with your life. And, but she did say, yes, for presenting in front of people. That was her very specific takeaway from theater. So that, that's one that comes to mind. I mean, a lot of them too will just say they have great memories because it's such a collaborative entity, what we're doing, with theater. So the bonding is really what happens and seeing, okay, and I try to stress to them, we're an ensemble, we're a group, we pick each other up. Some nights people are going to drop lines and you may have the opportunity to improvise for everybody. And I've watched people save the day, and that's my favorite parts when things don't go right, and seeing what's going to happen. And I've been stunned and amazed. So there's that facility too, as well, just watching them learn how to react in the moment, creatively to, when things go awry or amiss or not scripted.
Can you unpack a bit more around your enthusiasm for things not going right? I'm asking this because I work with a lot of people, mostly adults, mostly writers, and many come to the table really attached to that idea of getting it right. And I
Mhm.
try to say, listen, the real action is when you flub it. The real
Mhm.
action is when you don't quite get it right, when you stumble over your shoelaces, when you get confused on the street corner. That's when things start to happen. Talk a little more about getting it right and getting it wrong and how the wrong part is really right because you drop in more.
One of the creeds or tenets or something that I'll say to students, if you're really not knowing your lines, and we're about to do the show, when you're going to be wrong loud. Be wrong loud. It's like if you're not knowing what the lines were, first of all, the audience has no idea what you're supposed to be saying to begin with. So you have an opportunity. If you are, and I state this as a form, someone who grew up in New York, where we have a tendency at times to be on the louder side. If you're speaking with conviction, you're owning it. If you're owning it, even if you're not saying exactly what's supposed to be said, you're really staying with that moment and, going with that. That's one aspect to it. Also, as you're saying, I thought what's so great when you were using the specific word you use, the adjective like flub, what I loved hearing that. I mean, the entire history, right, of slapstick is about things not going right. Comedy is created from exactly that. So it's almost like having to take a slapstick approach to your life at times. It's like, okay, I'm somehow now Charlie Chaplin for the next, several moments, or this is happening. And it's hard because to varying degrees, everyone's different. I won't speak for anyone else. You want to do something well. We might take ourselves very seriously. And there's passion and and all of that occasionally to be able to just take a step back, and it really is okay. We are not performing brain surgery. Lives are not at stake. You are trying to do the best you can, but we're human. We are human. I mean, we're still human to this point. We'll see. 50 years from now, I couldn't maybe, but right now we're still human.
Speak about some of the other creative things you do. I know you write, you act. Give us an overview of that. And I'd like for you to do that as a way of leading into a conversation about why Taos has such vitality around the artistic aspects of life and why people are drawn to it. What are the other things you do?
So I started, theater wasn't my original background. I worked at a parenting magazine, so I guess, journalism, for a little while, which I was not that interested in because I'm much more interested in fiction. Though these days the difference between fiction and fact in journalism is interchangeable. That aside, yeah, so I'm a novelist, prose writing or writing novels and poetry and spoken word. That was a lot of what I did, what I do. And then in Taos, I started, somebody had owned, it was a place called the All Points Gallery. I don't know if you would remember that place. One of those places that has like the brief lifespan in Taos. And my friend owned the gallery and she said, "Oh, you should write a play and we'll do it here." And I'm like, "Okay." So I wrote it and we performed it. And I absolutely fell in love with the process of doing it. And from there, it was like all these stones lined up where I started teaching theater because there was an after school program. My friend invited me. I kept writing plays and, adult theater performing in here. And all of that just kind of manifested into, okay, now I'm teaching theater and writing and producing plays. And that led into working in film a little bit. That's been more new the last several years. I've always been a cinephile and love film. But part of it too is just keeping myself on a very selfish level engaged in these different processes, not just doing one thing. I love writing novels. I love the solitude of that. But I also love the interactivity or interactions in film and theater. And film, very different from theater. So I was like, okay, I'm curious. And I feel grateful to have remained curious throughout my life with art and processes. And that will lead into the Taos thing that when I came here, as you know, it's a funky enclave of a town with a lot of different personalities and a lot of different talents and aptitudes. I think what's kept me inspired here, one thing is that there's an accessibility level, like having grown up in New York. I've been in Taos now about 23 years, going on 24. The intimacy of the town and having plugged into the community over time, you really can create what you want here. So if you're wanting to do theater or create a film, the way everybody sort of as a motley crew will come together. There is an intimacy and accessibility because at the end of the day, I may not be making $1 million all this, but I'm getting to create stuff. And that, I remind myself, the making of whatever it is that one is doing, how important that is. And so community itself, there's a very generous spirit. And I can attest to that. Just yesterday, we did our bake sale fundraiser for the play, and everybody so excited to see kids doing youth theater and buying the cakes and croissants and everything else. And, all of that is just very endearing. And I didn't grow up with that kind of sense of community. I grew up in Brooklyn in a neighborhood, and it was what it was. It was different. And, just New York is a different animal, as I know that you know.
I do know that. I didn't grow up there, but I've spent a great deal of time there over the years. The artistic community in Taos is rich and varied. Can you talk a bit about the reason why you're involved with Taos Portraits?
The inside scoop here, which is for those who live in Taos, is not so inside of a scoop. Azumi is my partner. And so both romantically and creatively, we've worked on different projects together. And when I don't know if it was Kelly or Lynn, I can't remember who originally reached out and was speaking to Izumi. And it was just through a conversation that I said I'd be absolutely delighted to, before we had been in partnership in that way, I had a great respect for her art and artistry. I knew her in that way first. And I love, in general, I guess in an ekphrastic sort of way, but also I love writing about art and artists and like profiles of people, it's fun to like really go into someone else's. I don't know, part of me feels like paying homage in this world. Like I feel like my personal thing is we need more homage and more praising of all these wonderful gifts that people show. And so, yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it. But yeah, obviously I had access to being there with her studio and all the rest. And anyway, that's why I wrote about Azumi or how it came to be. And I think Lynn was the one who originally reached out, Lynn Robinson.
Tell us a bit more about Azumi's work. What does she do, and why did she end up in the book?
Paul, I think, just had this idea for doing this specific portrait of her, which is captivating and ghostly and, done in a traditional kimono. And if people can't tell by the name Izumi Yokoyama, she's Japanese. And so her work is a sumi-e ink process. It's pen and ink. It is meticulously detailed and refined. And it really speaks to ephemera often. Processes of death and regeneration will show up. Landscapes, like, anything from going back to her, harkening back to her Japanese background when it comes to the cherry blossoms, which has been a prevalent motif, but also, having lived in the high desert, she has an entire series with coyotes that really people resonated with or took to. When you look at it, however you feel about it is how you feel about it, but you can just see the exquisite craftsmanship that goes into it. And she sits there and labors over it, sort of like, hunched over like a little Yoda getting all curled up. And she says, I don't know how much longer my body will be able to handle this as I get older. But she is, yeah, a dedicated craftswoman and a high priestess of art, in my opinion.
Well, I can't wait to hear that piece read on the stage on June the 6th. Coming back around to your work now, you do a lot of performance, and I've seen you work. I know you have a great range. I've been doing a lot of memorization. I've been
Mhm.
memorizing poems that I knew in the past and bringing them back up to performance level, memorizing new work that I've never touched before just because I can. And I've had about a year of this memorization work, and I'm not doing it to perform work necessarily for you, although somebody asked me the other night, oh, do you have anything you can perform? And it was right there, of course. I could easily perform it because
Yeah.
I'd been working it. Do you have any thoughts on memorization and how that interacts with your creative work, and or do you memorize?
I used when I was doing more spoken word, I've really kind of stepped away from that. I'll still read. I love reading in public, but since I'm not doing as much spoken word performance, unlike you, where it's like, okay, to do it as a practice, I've not really spent the time memorizing. But to touch on something else, when you asked about the work, and since we're free-forming here, because I know that you and Allegra, you're write what you don't know is one of the tenets of your program. And I feel like naturally that's kind of what for especially the last 5 to 10 years, after having years of like written maybe stories from my past and background, I really started going into this speculative realm where this kept me very interested, work that was maybe more challenging for a reader and maybe less interesting. I don't know. That's for each person to decide. But the work for me going into like I really don't know. It's like this is going into other realms, touching upon maybe forgotten symbols or ideas, because I believe in there are voices that we're tapping into that are not my own. So that's so exciting, the idea of the I don't know, and that means it's going to be an experiment and to be with this discomfort of an enjoyment of being in the unknown or the unknowingness.
That's an interesting thought. When we titled our book, Write What You Don't Know 10 Steps to Writing with Confidence, Energy, and Flow, we were doing a little bit of a play on Write What You Know.
Hmm.
And of course, it's obvious. So our idea was, well, the things that you don't quite remember. So until just now, I've been thinking about the things that I don't know as things that are there somewhere that I actually do know. But you made
Mhm.
me examine another layer of things that I actually do not know. I mean, actually, like I don't know anything about how to build the Great Wall of China.
Mm.
I don't know anything about the steps for a successful brain surgery. I don't know anything about what it takes to build a small transistor for a piece of electronic gear.
Mhm.
So to write about things that you actually don't know about, what will come out? Is that where you're headed with that? Like I could write about
Even,
not,
yes, but even further, not where maybe it's technically something I don't know about. I'm talking also, and again, speaking just for myself, let's say if we were to go into the dreamlike realm, like when we're dreaming, a lot of things happen that don't happen in our ordinary lives, and regular rationale does not govern. So in that sense, that it kind of defies the expectations of rationale. It doesn't have to be surreal. Of course, that's where my own proclivity goes, but it could be that there's just something like, hey, I'll just give an example. Like, say that you, Nave, see this woman in the shadows walking down a hallway, and you're like, who is this woman and where is she going? And you would follow her in your mind, and you go there, and all of a sudden, you see a Grecian fountain. You're like, well, how did I get here? And then someone taps you on the shoulder from behind, and now you're in a Kafka-like tale, and they're like, sorry, you're gonna have to come with us. You shouldn't be here right now. And all of a sudden, you just keep writing and going. That's what I mean. You really don't know where you're going because it's like the character itself is also having this thrilling adventure. It's risky and thrilling. So I guess I'm speaking at ideas and concepts.
oh, that's exciting. So it's a bit like, let's track the dreams, let the dreams become into the
Yes.
waking life and turn the corner and see the fountain, which was the woman who was in the shadows. And now she's the fountain. And now the fountain is the water, and the water becomes the place where you were born.
There you go. Now you're
Oh my
riffing.
gosh, I get all excited about that. That's incredible. Do you have anything handy that you could read that you've written? I would love to hear some of your work. Do you think that's possible?
Fortunately, unplanned, but fortunately, all my books happen to be right next to me.
Well,
So
why don't
I'll
you
grab
pull
one quick.
something out and give us a read, man?
Okay. Let's see. Okay, this was from my last volume of poems from several years ago. It's called Moonglow on Mercy Street was the title of the book. I'll just read you something short. How about, okay, I'll read one called The Moon and Me, since we just had a new moon last night in Aries, and I'm in Aries. Um, I never learned the secret delicious recipe of making a poem from any of my teachers. It wasn't their fault. They might have regarded the moon as something distant, something belonging to astronauts, astrological envy, and lunatics. Or they might have forgotten what it feels like to feel the moon pulsing intimately like wild epileptic embers in their hearts. Who knows? But I sure am glad that the moon, reigning freely outside the constraints and jurisdiction of politics, religion, and academia, directly requests of me, in no uncertain terms, make good and inspired use of me and cook something up, a verse or two, a haiku, nursery rhyme, whatever. Just burn me into being and listen closely to how the stars applaud by winking. In other words, sometimes the moon rambled on. Everything is an echo of praise and music. So play me, man. Play me like I'm your homeboy or dancing queen. Play me oh so intimately without hesitation or reserve. And our nights together will give your dreams a whole new twist on living beyond mortal claims and limits. The Moon and Me.
Oh my gosh, I used to love to look at the moon when I was a little boy, and I wondered, well, is it made of cheese? And then where's the man in the moon? My father said, you have to see the man in the moon. And I looked for the face, and there were some eyes and a nose. So I was always excited about the moon. Do you have anything else you can read? One's not enough, John.
Oh, okay,
Come.
sure.
I'd
This is exciting.
love to hear some more stuff,
Okay.
man.
How about Into the Mystic? I became a bird just for a little while. It wasn't sorcery, it was need, a whirling imperative from or into the unknown, or perhaps the broken skin of bared dream. I became a bird and flew up to gather clouds. Something in my tiny beating heart compelled me to snip and collect tufts of cloud and store them in the sudden heart of winter or the balmy green crotch of summer. It didn't matter. Any season as a storehouse would do. I pecked at clouds, scissored my way through fibrous threads of dream-spun cotton. I collected with the Savian hunger of a living omen, a feathered portent, and then I came back down to earth and it was over. I was human again. All that was left as evidence of my bird life were several scattered feathers, coarse black. I picked one up and used its inky edge to scroll a single word on the singed pink of my forearm. Rain. I looked up at the sky, the clouds, waited and waited. The rain didn't come, at least not right away. When it did, it was accompanied by peals of thunder and blonde veins of lightning. Then the rain, a torrential squall pouring down upon my head, my skin, and the feather in my hand, as I recalled with lucid vividness the time I had become a bird for a little while, and left behind my forlorn humanity to gather clouds and store them in seasons yet to come. Into the Mystic. Take on the old Van Morrison title, I'm sure if you remember.
I do remember that. I do remember that. Talk about poetry. Why is it something significant for you? And I'm asking this because people often say to me, well, can you define it? And I go, well, not really. And they'll ask if, am I a poet? I say, well, maybe I'm a poet. Maybe I'm not. I write poetry. I enjoy it. It's been good to me. I'm not fighting any kind of identity. I'm just trying to keep things lowercase. Like I write rather than I'm a writer. I generate poetry rather than I'm a poet. Talk about poetry. Why does it have significance in your life?
I think, yeah, going back to my New York days, that was my first time when I started in my late teens, early 20s, reading poetry in front of people. I wrote stories secretly. I never like told anyone about it, and I didn't join any clubs. It was my own solitary pastime. So I know in the beginning it was exciting and very scary um, to go to these coffee houses and, all these places in Greenwich Village and otherwise, because I worked in that area to, yeah, read in front of people. So that was something to hear my own voice and having people react however they reacted. And then it got more, I guess, bolder and riskier. We go through different phases, and this was a different phase in my life in New York, and it was reflected probably in what I was writing. I always say I'm a writer only because it's like I've been doing it since I was a little boy. And like even when I'm doing film or anything else, in my heart, I always think of myself as a writer or that my mind is seeing in a writing way.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, poetry now, when I write them, it usually comes in clusters and bunches as it comes out. I mean, there's some revision, not a ton. Like the prose is different. That I'll work on every day. And the novel is a very different process from the poetry for me. I never sit down and say, I'm going to write poetry every day. I say I'm going to write every day. And if I'm working on a book, a novel, yes, I do that with diligence and consistency. The poetry almost feels like these flings that they could last 6 months, it could last, a week, and there's a cluster. That's been my own experience with it. I know there are people that's their thing. They'll do the poetry every day. That's not been for me.
Yeah, it's not for me either, although I do enjoy generating poetry and I like telling stories. And when I write, I often do it on the computer and I often write longhand, but I dictate a lot. Do you
Mm.
dictate when you generate your written work?
It's cool to hear that you still do. I wonder how many will still be doing longhand. I need to, a creature of habit that way. I have to write longhand first. I need that tangible process. If I go straight to the computer, I feel like I've skipped the step. This is just for how it feels for me. Even though I put everything on the computer and I do that next, I transcribe, but I still love the sound of a pen scratching on paper.
I generate much of what I do on first draft on longhand. It's longhand in a journal. And then what I will do is take the longhand writing and read it aloud into a recording, into my smartphone,
Hmm.
and I riff as I read.
Okay.
So I'm riffing off of what I've written. And if something pops out that's improvisational or in the I don't know arena, whatever I've recorded, I then put it in a transcription service and transcribe the whole thing. So then I get it transcribed back. So it's a combination of longhand,
Yeah.
free form, and yet still looking for form, then riffing off of the longhand from the page. And usually it's really messy. So there's a lot of clumsiness there. In the mess, I can riff off to the side with something. And it often takes me somewhere else and somewhere else and somewhere else. And then
So
when I
your
finally,
tangents sort of grow for you,
the
like they
tangents
branch
grow.
out.
They grow out
Mm.
from the initial handwriting.
How is it for you then when you're dictating? Do you dictate straight sometimes? And is it like straight flow where whatever comes, or is it already written like for the straight dictation?
I do straight dictation,
Hmm.
and the straight dictation is a bit more fragmented. It doesn't have the same energy as the longhand writing. There's something about that
Mm.
longhand writing that connects you to a drawing modality that's somewhere inside of you. It's a whole body movement.
Yes,
Whereas when
yes.
I walk and I dictate, I can generate 9,000 words in an hour. I take those pages and drop them into Chat GPT 4 and ask artificial intelligence to take out all of the redundancy, leave the 100% verbatim as is without the redundancy. So AI will
Hmm.
generate my text back to me as I have dictated it, but without the stumbles or the uhs and the ahs or the other
Sure.
things that don't really matter. I can take the words and I can break them down into idea beats. But the problem I find with the dictation like that, the volume, it's almost too much. So
Okay.
it interrupts the purity of the idea moment.
Mm.
Whereas the longhand over 2 or 3 pages in a short burst of time, 10 or 15 minutes, allows for a focus on one thought or one thought beat or one idea. So it won't go as fast. So that lack of speed actually creates more potent focus,
Okay. Yes, the
if
lack
that
of
makes sense.
it does. And one thing you said that I keyed on, I really liked the term and it made me think of something was idea beat. So one of my all-time favorite filmmakers who passed this year was David Lynch. And, just a huge fan, one of my heroes. But one thing he said, I got to listen to, you know how they do these on YouTube? What are they called again? Those masterclass things. Someone posted it for free after he passed. And so I got to listen to the whole thing and it was wonderful. But this goes back to the whole unknown thing. They asked him what his process was like, and he said sometimes he felt like he was sitting in a room and there was another person in the other room, and that person would open the door occasionally and bring him one piece of the puzzle. And he would put it down. And he knows there's a puzzle, but he doesn't know how it's going to fit together. Then he would have to wait. But he wasn't sure when it was going to come again. And then the next piece would come. And slowly he would put together. And when you talked about idea beat, it's like, yeah, there is something to the, swimming with these ideas and rhythm and otherwise. I'm always fascinated by process and how everybody's process is so different and yet the same too.
I'm more fascinated with process than I am end product. I get bored with the end. I say, okay, fine, here
Yeah,
it is. I'm
yeah.
ready to move on to the next thing. One of the things I have learned doing the memorization, walking and
Mhm.
dictating, longhand writing, imaginative storming, letting the words just flow out. I've learned about volume. Like we're just generating
Mhm.
volume.
Mhm.
And in that volume generation, you have a great deal of gems that will float out that you can capture. So the art to me is figuring out how to spot them. It's a bit like bird watching. You go out and walk around
Mhm.
Taos and it's a beautiful day and it's springtime and the birds are all chirping and it's a nice scene. And then suddenly something happens. A bird moves in the trees and it's a flash. And then another bird comes and some drama happens. And then you have a memory of it. That's the moment. And you don't know where those moments exist. You don't
Mhm.
know. And that's the best part of the don't know. I don't know where those moments are, and I never will know. But when they show up, they're so obvious.
Mhm. I like your word watching, Nave, your word watching.
I'm word what? See, John, I'm relying on you to tell me what I'm doing. Yes.
No, no, no.
It's
What's so fun about this for me too is that dear friend of mine recently passed, and we would try to meet every month, 2 months, and we'd sit in the cafe and talk. And these were the conversations. We loved talking about film, literature, music, and we would just riff, and he would get goosebumps on his arms, like we'd be talking about John Coltrane. You get excited about a concert clip. So this is fun, and I'm just grateful. Thank you for like the space and time, because often. You know how it is with radio, depending on if it's a short time period, you have 10 minutes, you're kind of rushing through and you're trying to get in whatever you can in a compressed synopsis. So this feels very breathable and getting to explore ideas a little bit further is fun. Like I geek out on this.
oh God, I do too. And I'm also thinking now, as I was talking about the birds and then listening to you talk about the young people and the theater and finding these things, I get really excited over nothing. Just like, whoa, look at the wall. You know, today I was out with my buddy John and we were walking down the Seine, and it's a very romantic place. And yet Paris is just another town with people coming and going. And there was this huge, monstrous barge parked in the river. And it was getting ready to pull back and then go upriver to deliver this massive amount of sand and gravel somewhere, tons and tons and tons of it. And I
Mhm.
just leaned on the wall and watched the barge chug out into the water. And it was a regular, just a barge, bunch of sand, somebody steering the barge out into the water. And yet to me, it was like watching God or something.
Mm.
Just wow, I was so excited. And it's just a boat going into the water.
I feel like if you're, yeah, to hear that, I think to maintain that level of curiosity engagement, I feel like that is personally, I think that's where it's at. I think Raymond Carver, I'm paraphrasing here, once said, sometimes writing is just staring at an old pair of shoes with amazement. And I feel like what you just said, you're seeing something that maybe anyone else would see, but you're having a thrilling experience within, or, transcendental, or.
Maybe transcendental is certainly exciting. The thing that I like to tell people when I get excited like this or have a conversation like you, and you and I've had these before, we should have more of them, John. I enjoy this no end.
Thank you, me too.
This is something available to all of us.
Hmm.
This isn't some exclusive thing that I happen to have because I'm looking at a boat. I just
Hmm.
happen to know that if I stop and look at the boat and I allow myself to be excited about something ordinary like a boat going into the water, I will get excited. That excitement is the collective consciousness just dazzling itself around, and we are just happening to participate in that dazzle.
I couldn't say add anything to that because that's so right on. And yeah, and it is very democratic, isn't it? It is accessible. Curiosity or, or an openness because it is everywhere. And for everybody, it's different. We curate our own realities. What's very interesting to me may not be to you.
Well, it's always true. Everybody has a different view of exactly the same thing.
Hmm.
And we all share that excitement. And if we could somehow, and I know you're doing this with the children, and let's just close going back to these children, they bring that kind of joy to these moments. And I know that you see that. And I'm not a child. God knows I'm in my 70s. I'm not a child at all. And yet I do feel very young when that excitement hits me. I'm not young. I just feel a sense of eternal power that's there. That is by nature youthful because it's always generating the generative stuff.
Like in a Peter Pan kind of way.
Here we are, back to Peter
Full
Pan.
circle.
So give us just a little bit as we say goodbye, a little overview once more of your Peter Pan play, how people can get tickets, where they can go, see your work and see these little ones Peter Panning around as they will, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, one thing you just said about the joy, the joie de vivre is yesterday at the end of, our rehearsal, we were doing a little freeze dance game and all the music's playing. And I was telling Azumi, I was like, I feel so good inside and happy watching these kids. They're dancing, laughing, their partner dancing, they're goofing around. It was like just pure joy was being generated in that studio. And it is exactly what you're just referring to. I feel like that sort of encapsulates it. For the brass tacks, the play itself, yes, as we said, April 11, 12, and 13, Wildflower Playhouse. It is a smaller theater, so if you do want to come, highly recommend getting the tickets in advance through wildflowerplayhouse.org. So wildflowerplayhouse.org, just because, 30 kids, a lot of parents and family come. So if you do want to assure getting a seat, and we're only having 4 shows, it's my recommendation based on previous experiences. We'll do this, then we'll take a little break, and then the summer camps, and then I'll start working this summer and see every year. They're like, well, what are you writing? What are you doing? I'm like, I don't know until, They're like, can we do this? I'm like, I have to see. If I don't have a feeling to write it, no, we can't. That's not what we're going to be doing.
And so there you go, my friends.
We're not
2 poems
created in that sense,
during the Imaginative Storm Writing Prompt of the Week gatherings.
But yeah,
if you'd
again,
like to join
that's that
us,
information. This has been
imaginativestorm.com is a good place
true
to look.
delight,
I look forward to
being
connecting
able
with you,
to
perhaps.
riff in
And
these
on that
different
note,
areas. I
thank
just
you
love
ever so
talking
much
about
for
this
listening
stuff
to
and being that,
Twice 5 Miles Radio.
you're excited and
Fertile
engaged, and we
ground
get
for
to have a conversation in
worth
this
listening
way is
to
really
and
cool.
remembering.
I definitely
I'm your
love
host,
it. And I
James
am looking
Navé,
forward to our time
always
together
airing first
on
on
June the 6th
WPVMLP,
on the stage at the TCA with the opening of Taos Poetry. Allegra Houston and I are hosting it with you and a whole bunch of other people showing up just to launch the summer season in Taos. Allegra and I are calling it a gala. It's probably something like a gala. If you name it a gala, it's going to be a gala. So
I'll
there
dress
you
up.
go.
Now that it's a gala, I'll dress up.
Now it's a gala. You have to put on. You have to dress up, John. I will too. Everybody can dress up. It's a good excuse to go out galaing into the TCA arena, and we'll have great fun. So thank you, my friend. I really appreciate your time. We'll do more.
All right.
Please
I'll see
remember,
you in the
we are
neighborhood.
sponsored
Thank you,
by the
Navé.
Imaginative Storm Writing
And there you
Project.
go, my friends.
If you'd like to improve
This
your
concludes
writing
my
chops,
conversation with John Biscello.
good place
When I
to
get back to
start.
Taos in later
So
part
once
of
again,
April,
thank
I'm
you ever so
definitely
much
going to
for
reach
tuning
out to
in.
John,
I
and
really do
I
appreciate
look
it.
forward
And
to a
maybe,
few
hey,
conversations over
guess
some
what?
coffee
Who
at one of
knows?
the great
I'll
coffee
catch you on
shops
that
in
turnaround
Taos.
somewhere down the line.
For now, as we close the show, what I'd like to do is to offer you a couple of recorded poems I created during our Imaginative Storm Writing Prompt of the Week gathering. I mentioned those free Zoom calls, imaginativestorm.com, if you'd like to connect with that more. Each time we meet, Saturdays and on Thursdays, we generate a piece of writing in 10 minutes. I generate the writing longhand, then I riff when I read it, I record it, and then I turn it into a sound file. So what I would like to do is to give you the last 2 sound files I created from our Imaginative Storm Writing Prompt of the Week gatherings. So here's the first one, and then followed by the second one. All the music was written for these pieces by Walter Parks. It's original music, and I appreciate Walter's offering. I've always enjoyed what he does. So here you go. Number 1, and then followed by number 2. Put your story across the rocky landing. All force belongs to those who break angel wings apart and turn them into dust. I fold you behind the patches on my shoulders. Oh no, these are the days that have never been. At last, I'm home, tired. I forgot your name. Why do I find old buzzards hiding behind clocks and shops on the flyway road? I wish I could be in love forever with the old trucks that roar into the night. Fold me into your pocket. Carry me with you until I stop breathing, then release me into the thin air. Oh, thin air, why do you redeem the little ones? What about me? Can I have redemption too? One small wish will do. A little wish to go in my story when I wake behind some old wizard's dream. I have never robbed a bank or stolen a diamond or a heart for that matter. Hold me now, hold me tight. I belong to the wind again and the lies I've told. Yes, you can take me with you. I'll protect you. I'll find the cracks in the sky and pull God down onto the fire that burns at the back of my hand. I'm home, like I said. The angels have disappeared, gone with the dust and memory. Come with me, old wizard. Yes, that's you. Put your story across the rocky landing. Tell me no more lies, at least not today. Let's break down this story. I belong to those who believe small gods call out to lizards with wings. Who can remember 20 years ago? How do you know those you've forgotten still live? A man told me last night he had died in another lifetime because he jumped off a cliff to keep the Romans from killing him, some kind of religious thing, many, many centuries ago. I told him I'd never experienced a past life. I said all life is one as far as I was concerned, a continuous roll across the void, at home in nothing. He had his story, I had mine. And then Bill Funderburg's story. Bill died in the East Village during the AIDS crisis. Old Bill Funderburg, we loved him. He could have been Andy Warhol in another life. Had one of those long stem cigarette holders that he put his Camel in or his Marlboro or whatever cigarette he smoked, and he would walk around staring up at the sky, peering into the trees, puffing his cigarette. After he died, that news didn't come back to me for many years. When I last heard the news, it was a long time ago, and somebody told me his teeth were on a shrine in Phuket, in Thailand. If you've never been there, I've never been to Phuket. All praise to the land of the Buddha. The butterflies came, gold wings hungry for beauty. Nothing boring about butterflies and dreams and those who wait for buses across the street from the Bar de Marché in Paris, where people lean on walls in the uncertainty of casual time. Oh, hungry complacency, why do the fairies lie so much? Can you tell me that? Why do the fairies lie so much? How come the first position blesses the robin's eggs before I can break open? She said she hated pink. Oh my, Bill Funderburg loved pink. I love wizards. At the Bar de Marché, you can do nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's okay. Cerie waves at the people who go by, serves some drinks, waves at them again. I've been going there for years, maybe 40 years. Will I soon disappear? Will I soon find the bus? The bus I've been waiting for a long, long time? Who will remember me when I'm gone? And so there you go, my friends. 2 poems created during the Imaginative Storm Writing Prompt of the Week gatherings. If you'd like to join us, imaginativestorm.com is a good place to look. I look forward to connecting with you perhaps. And on that note, thank you ever so much for listening to Twice 5 Miles Radio, fertile ground for conversations worth listening to and remembering. I'm your host, James Navé, always airing first on WPVM-LP Asheville 103.7, streaming online WPVMFM.org, the voice of Asheville heard all over the world, and on other community radio stations like KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio out of Taos, New Mexico. Thank you, Walter Parks, for our theme song, walterparks.com for more on Walter's music. Thank you, Dauphine Dial, for managing WPVM-FM in Asheville, and Robin Collier for doing the same. KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio out of Taos, New Mexico. If you'd like to reach me, Navé at jamesnavé.com. I would love to hear from you. Navé is spelled N-A-V-E. Please remember, we are sponsored by the Imaginative Storm Writing Project. If you'd like to improve your writing chops, imaginativestorm.com. Good place to start. So once again, thank you ever so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And maybe, hey, guess what? Who knows? I'll catch you on that turnaround somewhere down the line.